Hello, everyone. Hope you are doing well. Welcome back to episode number 2 on our road to 2000 ELO series. As you'll notice right away, our ELO is 1306, which is actually higher than our first episode. The reason for that is because I actually did record a different video, or the first, original episode number 2. The file went bad, so couldn't upload that. So technically, this is episode 3, but anyways, we're on episode 2. The secondary issue is that I actually forgot to record my audio, my voice for this game. So I'm just doing a voiceover here. But yeah, anyways, so we get a typical Caro here. In this game, we end up getting knight f3 instead of queen f3. And I play a pretty normal setup here. Now, already the opponent makes a blunder with this move bishop g5. Now, typically, first of all, what I would say in the Caro is usually you actually put the bishop. You don't play e6, but you do put the bishop on this move f5, and I'll show it later in the analysis. In this game, you'll notice I put the bishop on g4, and that's because I don't actually mind trading the bishop for the knight, because all my pawns will end up being on these light squares. But anyways, we get this position with bishop g5. Now, this is simple puzzles. And the opponent basically blundered a piece here, which is quite surprising because there are 1,300. But essentially, this bishop is a type 2 undefended piece. It's only defended by this knight. And so if I actually take the knight, queen takes, I win the bishop. If I take his knight, he takes my queen. I take his queen. And after the kings take the respective bishops, I'm simply up a piece here. And so again, just a typical blunder. Bishop takes f3. Basically wins the game. Wait a little bit here. Again, there's really only two moves. Either the bishop takes my queen or their queen takes my bishop. And after that, I take on g5. So so this is sort of the position we have here. Again, super surprising. It's a decent elo. It's not necessarily that low. We get queen f3, queen g5, simply up a piece. Now, a lot of people would think the game is completely over, and, I did say that, but the thing is the conversion is actually really important, even at the top level of chess. Even for example, at Norway Chess recently, there was a game between Fabi and Magnus, and completely jet-drawn position. I think Fabi played one wrong king move, and all of a sudden, Magnus started winning, and he ended up winning the game completely. So the conversion is really important, whether it's, completely drawn position, completely winning. Really important to convert that correctly. I'm just thinking about white here. I guess not sure why they're thinking too much, but bishop d3 castles is pretty typical here. But I think our course of action will be to try to trade as many pieces as possible. It's really important. I mean, if you're a beginner, pretty new to the game, if you can essentially trade off all the pieces, you have an extra piece. You can go for checkmate, you can push the pawn, make a queen, etc., and just win the game like that. Again, pretty surprising the opponent's thinking. Maybe c3, knight c3, bishop d3, castles. All these moves are normal. Again, for me, I play bishop d3 and castle, but again, knight c3, c3, knight d2, all possible moves. As black, probably going to go c5, knight c6, knight e7, knight f5, or even knight g6 here. A lot of potential move. Essentially, I just want to develop my pieces, castle my king, and then, figure out what to do from there. So he plays knight c3, typical Caro style, gonna play the move c5 here. There might be a potential knight b5, but, we can deal with that when it comes around. We got the move bishop b5 here, knight c6 is what I'm going to play. Really important because a lot of times in the Caro, this diagonal from a5 towards the king, sometimes it's really weak, because if the knight's actually capturing on e5 or on d4, and the knight's not on c6 or on d7 to protect the king has to move, and you're essentially in a lost position. In this case, I just decide to take on d4. It hits the knight. Not hard. We trade on c6. I think opponent plays knight a4 in this position. Exactly. And yeah, I'd love to play the move c5. Can't do it. I think the main way to continue here is, again, just try to develop your pieces. Probably could play rook b8 here, for example, just targeting b2, but I really want to develop these pieces and try to get out of the way. I can even play the move queen e5, but again, I'm focused on development. I'm up a piece and a pawn of 4 points of material. I just want to continue playing the game. Develop the pieces, go for checkmate, go from there. So I'll play the move knight e7. after a bit of thought here, because after the move like rook d1, I always have knight f5, not worried at all. So with that, I'll play the move knight e7, angling for knight f5. Now, really instructive here, he plays this move queen b3, and it's really important. And sometimes when you start chess, it's like was the opponent angling for? Yeah, it's really important to know like not only your plan, but what does the opponent want. Now, in this case, I can clearly see queen b7 is his idea. I can't play the move rook b8. Obviously, I hang the rook, and queen b7 is pretty strong because it actually hits my rook on a8. And even if I play the move like rook c8, it's really defended by the knight. And anytime I want to get this bishop out, like if I play knight f5, I can't because it hangs the rook on b8. So it's a little bit harder. Here, I think best move probably is just to take on e5, because after queen b7, I can play the move queen b8. And as I previously alluded to, really important to be able to trade off all the pieces, just to have a nice winning position. So again, I'm angling for queen b8 after queen b7. Let's see if the opponent does play it. So this is like somewhat instructional, somewhat of, just me walking through my thought process here. Again, I play the move queen. They do play queen b7, so I play queen b8. Now, if they really want to avoid it, they can play the move queen a6 here, which I think he does end up playing. After queen a6, I have a fantastic move, we'll see right here, which is this move queen b5. Queen b5 is really an excellent move because it forces the trade of queens. Queen basically can't go anywhere. There is no squares here. It has to trade the piece. And I'm just going to pre-move it, obviously, because if takes, I'll just take back. Takes. Really important here is this bishop on f8 actually targets the knight on c5, so I can put the knight anywhere. I decided to put the knight on c6 just to protect d4 a little bit more. Again, I could have played knight g6, knight f5, like it's all pretty winning. And we get resignation. So pretty short game here, pretty clean as well, I'd say. Again, we play this move bishop g5, and as I was saying earlier, it's pretty typical to play the move bishop f5. Simple example is after we get e4, c6, d5, d4, d5, e5, moment, and usually play the move bishop f5, followed by e6, c5, knight c6, all the typical moves. Now, as I was alluding to before, I really like to play this bishop g4 because, again, I don't really mind trading off this bishop for the knight. And if we just back up here one move, they play c3, again, I can take it. Or let's say instead of c3, they play the move h3, take. After queen takes, you see a lot of my pawns are actually on the light square, which is good because anytime you give up like a light square bishop or a dark square bishop, you want to make sure the pawns are on the same color squares. So that's sort of the logic there. Again, really shocking that that the opponent in this position, as early as move 5, has completely blundered a piece. So in the game we had, we had bishop f3, queen f3, queen g5. Additionally, what could have happened was bishop f3, bishop d8, bishop d1, king d1, king d8. Maybe this is what the opponent should have done, but either way, they're still down a piece here, and it's not too hard to convert. Yeah, both kings are in the center, can't really castle. Maybe this is what they should have done, but again, bishop g5, just pretty elementary blunder. We take on g5, play the move c5, pretty normal here. Trade in the center, takes on c6, a4. 97, slightly inaccurate. I think this move queen takes e5 was probably better, but again, just angling for development. I think in the game I probably would have, I think generally speaking it's probably better to take because then I could play knight f6 and then move my piece. Queen b3 takes on e5, which is perfectly reasonable. Queen b8, and then this move queen b5. Excellent move. Just trading off the pieces and, just angling for an endgame here. Queen a6. Yeah, not really sure what else to play here. You can play queen b6 again. The queen can move all the way back to like d2 or e2. Sorry. All the same. Not much to do. We get trades and the opponent does resign. So a relatively short game here. Again, the game could have continued like knight b3, a5, probably like a4, b4. Could have happened. I think what I would have done instead was play the move bishop d6 and just castle, and then Maybe then play A5, but either way, the game is effectively over. Yeah, pretty quick game. Not too much to say. I think episode 3 hopefully will be a little bit more, enticing. But with that, episode 2 comes to a wrap. Hope everyone did enjoy. And I will see you all in episode number 3. Peace.